Yo, yes now, bless now, don't forget to rest now. Des, Rocksteady at King of the Pit TV signing in. Bruh, we're going to continue on with our journey through understanding the history and the meaning of heavy metal, alright? So I'm going to crack open a little Twisted Fruits Zero Sugar, yeah? And we're going to have a little dig. We're doing the 1950s to late 1960s. I'm sure there's an adequate amount of material. If not, we'll move on a little later, alright? But let's find a couple of little things out. Let's educate ourselves, people. Class is in session. I've had a long day. I've had a hard day, and I've got the week ahead of me, which is going to be just as hard. So, if we can have a laugh along the way, we're going to try our best. All right. So let's have a little dig, yeah. As I said, class is in session, my people. So heavy metal's quintessential guitar style, which is built around distortion-heavy riffs and power chords, traces its roots to early 1950s Memphis blues guitarists. Let's have a little dig on Memphis blues, yeah. The Memphis blues is a style of blues music created from the 1910s to the 1930s by musicians in the Memphis area, alright? That's what they state. That's what Wikipedia tells us, people. Any disagreements, you let me know, alright? Guitarists such as Joe Hill Lewis, Willie Johnson, and particularly Pat Hare. So who's this Pat Hare fella? A Memphis electric blues guitarist and singer. His heavily distorted, power chord driven electric guitar performances in the early 1950s is considered an important precursor of heavy metal music. His guitar work with Little Junior's Blue Flames had a major influence on blah de blah. Man like Pat Hare. Who's Pat Hare? Here, metalheads out there, you can now go to your mates and say, you haven't even heard of Pat Hare. Trust me, what you talking about Sabbath for? You don't know about Pat Hare. And then just don't tell him anything more. Who captured a grittier, nastier, more ferocious electric guitar sound on records such as James Cotton's Cotton Crop Blues in '54. Other early influences include the late 50s instrumentals of Link Wray, particularly Rumble, alright? Once again, we're talking about distortion, although tremolo picking within that little number, people. There we go. Slayer, eat your heart out. Don't talk to me about Sabbath or Slayer. Man, I purely listen to Link Wray and Pat Hare. Alright? Don't give me none of that mainstream crap. I listen to real heavy metal. The early 1960s surf rock of Dick Dale, including Let's Go Trippin' and Misirlou, and the Kingsmen's version of Louie Louie, which became a garage rock standard. However, the genre's direct lineage begins in the mid-1960s. American blues music was a major influence on the early British rockers of the era. Bands like the Rolling Stones and the Yardbirds developed blues rock by recording covers of classic blues songs, often speeding up the tempos. As they experimented with the music, the UK blues-based bands, and in turn the US acts they influenced, developed what would become the hallmarks of heavy metal, in particular the loud, distorted guitar sound. The Kinks played a major role in popularizing this sound with their '64 hit You Really Got Me. Da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. Hey, I'll tell you what, it's a rockin' riff. It's a rockin' riff. Hey, you really got me now. Kinks, quite underrated in this day and age, I would say. It's only the old heads who reference the Kinks nowadays, I'm going to tell you that. In addition to the Kinks' Dave Davis, other guitarists such as The Who's Pete Townsend and Yardbirds' Jeff Beck were experimenting with feedback. Yeah, has anybody seen anybody mosh to feedback before? Anybody seen feedback mosh? There's nothing better. Where the blues rock drumming style started out largely as simple shuffle beats on small kits, drummers began using a more muscular, complex and amplified approach to match and be heard against the increasingly loud guitar. Vocalists similarly modified their technique and increased their reliance on amplification, often becoming more stylized and dramatic in terms of sheer volume, especially in live performance. The Who's bigger, louder Wall of Marshalls approach was seminal to the development of later heavy metal sound. All we need is one amp, people. Yo, it gets so loud nowadays. You go to a venue, you're not cranking that amp to max. No way. If you've got an half decent valve amp and you're just playing, a fair venue, you're not playing the O2 Academy or a large scale venue. If you're just in a cushy little band, you don't need a wall of marshals. You just need a fair head and one cab, don't you? When these rock stars do all of these empty cabs for show and all of that, I can't stand that. Can't stand that. The combination of this loud and heavy blues rock, and you know what? I'll be honest with you, people. Loud in general, I don't want it to be loud. I don't want to go home with tinnitus. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wanting to kill myself because I've got tinnitus. Because people literally do. You know what I mean? My hearing isn't great in the lower frequencies because of my consistency within live music, especially whilst I was younger. I don't want to damage my hearing anymore. I don't like the idea of it being loud and loud and loud. It's pointless to me. The combination of this loud and heavy blues rock with psychedelic rock and acid rock formed much of the original basis for heavy metal. The variant or subgenre of psychedelic rock, also known as acid rock, was particularly influential on heavy metal and its development. Acid rock is often defined as a heavier, louder, or harder variant of psychedelic rock. Let's have a look who was playing acid rock. Let's have a little deek, people. We'll have a proper rundown on this genre in due time, but I just want to see, list of artists. Acid rock artist. Alice Cooper's late 60s work. Sabbath is acid rock, supposedly. Blue Cheers, we see them referenced a lot. The Charlatans. Charlatans are a fantastic band. I might be seeing the Charlatans come next month, to be fair with you. Cream, Deep Purple, The Doors, so on and so forth. I've never heard anyone refer to Axe as acid rock ever in my entire life. Was influential on heavy. Yep. Acid rock is is often defined as heavier, louder, or harder variant of psychedelic rock, or the more extreme of the psychedelic rock genre, frequently containing a loud, improvised, and heavily distorted guitar-centered sound. Acid rock has been described as psychedelic rock at its rawest and most intense, emphasizing the heavier qualities associated with both the positive and negative extremes of the psychedelic experience, rather than only the idyllic side of psychedelia. In contrast to more, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, idyllic or whimsical pop, psychedelic rock, American acid rock garage bands such as the 13th Floor Elevators epitomize the frenetic, heavier, darker, and more psychotic psychedelic rock sound known as acid rock, a sound characterized by droning guitar riffs, boring, amplified feedback, and guitar distortion. While the 13th Floor Elevator sound in particular featured yelping vocals and occasionally demented lyrics, Frank Hoffman noted that psychedelic rock was sometimes referred to as acid rock. The latter label was applied to a pounding hard rock variant that evolved out of the mid-1960s garage punk movement. When rock began turning back to softer roots-orientated sounds in the late 68, acid rock bands mutated into heavy metal acts. There we go. Wikipedia told me that. I didn't come up with that one, people. Acid rock? Bruh, what you want about? You listen to Black Sabbath. I listen to the Memphis Blues and acid rock. Come on now. Come on. One of the most influential bands in forging the merger of psychedelic rock and acid rock with the blues rock genre was the British power trio Cream, who derived a massive heavy sound from unison riffing between Eric Clapton and Jack Bruce, as well as Ginger Baker's double bass drumming. Double bass in the 60s is kind of mad to me, to be fair with you. Their first two LPs, Fresh Cream in 1966 and Disraeli Gears in 67, are regarded as essential prototypes for the future style of heavy metal. The Jimi Hendrix Experience's debut album, Are You Experienced, was also highly influential. Hendrix's virtuosic technique would be emulated by many metal guitarists, and the album's most successful single, Purple Haze, is identified by some as the first heavy metal hit. It's pretty heavy. It's heavy in a Rage Against the Machine kind of way, don't you think? Boom, boom, boom. Ba-dum-bum-bum. It's heavy. Yeah, I can't disagree. I can't disagree. As far as the first heavy metal hit, what do I know? But it it's heavy. Vanilla Fudge, whose first album came out in '67, has also become one of the few American links between psychedelia and what soon became heavy metal. And the band has been cited as an early American heavy metal group. On their self-titled debut album, Vanilla Fudge created loud, heavy, slowed-down arrangement of contemporary hit songs, blowing these songs up to epic proportions and bathing them in a trippy, distorted haze. Basically a novelty band, novelty cover band of today. During the late 60s, many psychedelic singers such as Arthur Brown began to create outlandish, theatrical and often macabre performances that influenced many metal acts. The American psychedelic rock band Coven, who opened for early heavy metal influences such as Vanilla Fudge and the Yardbirds, portrayed themselves as practitioners of witchcraft or black magic, using dark, satanic or occult imagery in their lyrics, album art and live performances, which consisted of elaborate theatrical satanic rites. Oh, I'm bored of Satan, man. The satanic stuff bores me, man. It's just done to death. Coven's 1969 debut album, Witchcraft Destroys Minds and Reaps Souls. Yeah, I've seen the artwork of that. We've browsed this one as of so far, haven't we? Featured imagery of skulls, black masses, inverted crosses, and Satan worship. And both the album artwork and the band's live performances marked the first appearances in rock music of the Sign of the Horns. Yeah, that's where we came across it. Throwing the horns, the original, where it derived from the roots of the horns, which would later become an important gesture in heavy metal culture. Coven's lyrical and thematic influences on heavy metal were quickly overshadowed by the darker and heavier sounds of Black Sabbath. And there we go. That was a brief overview up until the late 60s and the early 1970s, where we're going to go to next, alright? Basically, all of this stuff is old head boring stuff. All of these bands are boring, aren't they? Really, none of them had. You know what? None of them were extreme enough, people. None of them were extreme enough. I'm not here to listen to 60s and 70s bands, alright? I like a little melody. I like a lovely singing vocal. But you're not coming like bloody Autopsy, are you? None of these bands are coming like the real deal at this point. If anything, I would argue that the 60s and 70s are the worst decades, in my personal opinion, for music. Controversial one, but it is what it is, people. So let's keep on moving. We've got the late 1960s and early 1970s coming up, alright? Peace.